Welcome to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus is to provide physical, mental, spiritual info and positive vibes to help you endure and adapt. We'll be bringing you experts to provide strategies to handle stress and boost your immunity. Welcome, everybody, to the Immunity Community 2020. And I have a guest that I am super excited to introduce everybody to. And it's his name is Micah Lowe, and his company is simply O3. And O3 stands for Ozone. So we're going to talk about everything ozone today, because that is Micah's world. And it's something that I'm personally very interested in. Our practice, Pain Arthritis Relief Center, is very interested in seeing all the effects. I've seen it personally work on myself, my family, my friends, and I wanted to be able to share with our community stuff that's not mainstream that's out there. And so, Micah, if you could share with us, I don't even know where to start. I'll start with, if you could tell us before we go into ozone. Well, actually, let's start there. Can you tell us what is ozone?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's kind of hard to know where to start. And that's because it's such a broad genre, meaning that it can be used in a lot of different things, from municipalities, water treatment, winemaking, water bottling, all sorts of different stuff. But what we're talking about today is primarily ozone therapy. So it's using a medical grade ozone gas oxygen mixture, and it's applied in a number of different ways. So even in the medical field, it has a very broad perspective in how it's used. So it can be used as a cosmetic for rejuvenation of hair, for reduction of wrinkles. It can be used as an injection for pain, for arthritis, for things of that nature. It's used medically for cancer, Lyme, autoimmune, and it can be used dentally. So it's really effective as an antiseptic in the dental world.
Awesome. So can you give us just our audience just a little bit of a science background, and what really, I mean, I could get into it, but I want to keep it really simple as to what oxygen or excuse me, O3 really is, or how it becomes, or because there's a ton of history as to how this came about. But if you can tell us what it is chemically.
Yeah, and most people, when they think of ozone, if they know about it at all, they think of it as a pollutant. So if you're in Los Angeles, might hear the ozone layers are such and such today, or they might know it as a purifier for air purification. But ozone, all it is it's O3, so oxygen. O2, that's what you breathe. Ozone is O3. And its history and its medical usage actually goes back to 1874. I went into kind of the medical, I went into like the initial resources, everything I could find on the history of ozone. And most people thought it actually started in World War I, but I actually discovered it started way before that. In 1874, there was a doctor in Germany who was talking about its antiseptic abilities for clearing out wounds and things of that nature. So ozone is a very strong antiseptic. It's able to kill off pathogens and bacteria, and that's what they initially discovered it for in the medical world. In World War I, they're actually using it to disinfect wounds. So
awesome.
Soldiers would often die of infections and things of that nature, but they were able to use the ozone successfully to eliminate those infections that were really tough to get rid of. And leading into it came into the United States first kind of in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that's really where the scientific foundation of it started. Is back in Italy. They were doing a lot of research. They were starting to really dive in because they were like, oh, this can be mixed with blood. It can be injected into joints. What the heck is going on? Because people are getting better. So that's when the scientific foundation, or the bed of the science of ozone really started, was back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then it just has been kind of progressing ever since. So we have over 2,000 medical studies now. It's CE medically certified. So it's actually a medically approved therapy in Europe. It's not in the United States yet. We're making progress on that front, but there's over 50,000 doctors now using it on a daily basis worldwide.
Awesome. Can you jump into that a little bit? Because I know, so your website is, your father is the scientist behind this, and you're would you say that, am I correct in that? And is Tom Lowe, and you sell the equipment side. Obviously you have to have an understanding of it as well. What is that? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. So are you looking for kind of the science on the biochemical, how it
Not
works?
not as much, but really what my question is leading into. You said it's used 50,000 offices or doctors worldwide, and it's not approved in the United States. Yet I've watched videos with Dr. Mercola. Mercola.com is like the biggest natural health website on the planet. Dr. Mark Hyman, and several other. I've seen people. There was just a doc who uses it in for longevity and health. What's the what are the naysayers saying? Like, why is it not approved in the United States, and why are some offices using it, and is it safe, and yeah.
Yeah. So going a little bit into the safety, and so why we discovered it is actually safe to use. So the reason that there's a lot of people, and especially people that understand it as a pollutant, that say that, well, why would you use ozone? It's toxic. And that kind of makes sense because, yeah, you can't breathe ozone. So why can we use it in other parts of the body? Well, in the lungs, it's really the only application in which you can't use ozone. In the lungs, it's called a total antioxidant system. So there's no antioxidants in the lungs to be able to quench this very, very strong oxidant. So when the ozone goes into the lungs, that actually irritates them. So most of the naysaying comes from that perspective, is like, well, we know ozone over time causes cancer if you're breathing it on a daily basis at high doses. Causes, all these sorts of harmful things. So they just really, it's not that difficult of a question to address, because there's just so much scientific literature on it. And I think it usually comes from a point that they really just don't know that it's out there. They just
Right.
kind of know some of the studies on its use in the lungs and their gluten and those types of things. And the reason it can be used, let's say, in the blood, for instance, is because there's an antioxidant system there. So there's all these different antioxidants within the blood that are able to quench the ozone, which causes what's called a cascade effect. So once the ozone goes into the blood, it doesn't have an oxidizing effect to the properties of the blood. The antioxidants are able to quench the ozone, and then it starts kind of a domino effect of other reactions within the properties of the blood. So initially, when they were studying ozone, they didn't exactly know why it was different in the blood as to the lungs. But as we've gotten more and more research, we've started to really understand that, well, there's an antioxidant system in place, so it does make sense why it's helpful in other areas of the body.
Interesting, because I've for those nerds out there like me, I was able to come up with the word hormesis, and the hormesis effect, which is, it basically says you're stimulating the immune system to kick itself into gear. So it's not that the ozone itself is actually healing, but it's getting your body's immune system to kick back in that antioxidant system. And for those of you who are not nerds like me, oxidation is things like rust, and when fruits and vegetables go bad and they turn brown, that's oxidation right there. So am I in line with that in what you were saying there?
Yeah, oxidation happens when electrons are stolen from a molecule. So it's taking away the structure of the molecule that's in place, and that's oxidizing it. So yeah, rust would be an example of that. Ozone going into the lungs is another form of oxidation on the lungs, but within the blood, that just doesn't happen.
Awesome. So in relevance to what we do here at Pain Arthritis Relief Center, can you go into a little bit the benefits or how it actually works with joint problems like knee pain or knee arthritis or back problems, and where its use has been for that?
Yeah, and the reason, so explaining too why it's so fundamental, is because ozone is not like a drug. So a drug, say we're putting a steroid into the joint, or we're doing something like that. That usually is turning something on or turning something off. It has a very binary effect on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Ozone is very fundamental. So like you said, it's not necessarily forcing something to react or to happen. It's just assisting the body to work properly. So it's a hormesis effect. It's stimulating homeostasis, helping the bodies to self-regulate. So if we're injecting it into a joint with, let's say, arthritis, some of the things that you would see from kind of an outside perspective is a decrease in inflammation, a decrease in pain, and an increase in healing. What's happening is the ozone is going in, and it's stimulating all these fundamental biological processes that are helping with the pain pathways, helping reduce the oxidative stress that's going on, which is another interesting subject.
Yeah.
But reducing the oxidative stress, which reduces the inflammation in the area. And when you allow those things to happen, it allows the body to take the proper response to something like arthritis and actually start the healing mechanisms So that's why it can be used in a joint, essentially.
It's awesome because it aligns, I'm a chiropractor by trade, and we have a holistic, it fits within our holistic medicine department. And that's really what I would consider it, a more holistic approach to medicine versus, I'd never heard of it that way, but that binary approach, like it turns something on, turns something off. But this works in that complete different fashion. Is there some other, so I understand and I see ozone as not a cure to things, but it's curative. It helps boost the immune system. Any other, like where have we seen, or where have doctors or scientists seen across the board, where have we seen most of the effect with ozone and the benefits?
If you're looking for like knocks out of the park, one would be like herniated discs. So herniated discs there, and so kind of the root of science is repeatability, right? So there's this fantastic book called Rigor Mortis that really just bashes the scientific community that 50% of the studies we put out there are not repeatable. So the basis of science means that something needs to be repeated. Now with herniated discs, a successful surgery might have 70 to 80% success on a herniated disc, depending on how severe it is and some other factors. But with ozone, just injecting, a couple $100 worth of work into a herniated disc across the board, it has 60 up to 80% success rates. And now this is coming from multiple parties that are independent of one another that have been able to time and time again study this. And you can just type in ozone therapy herniated disc, and you're going to come up in the first page 5 different studies. So I think one of the knockout of the parks would be that for a couple $100, you can essentially have a 60 to 80% chance of reversing a herniated disc.
That's pretty awesome. And are these studies coming out of, I know a lot of the work on ozone has been in Germany and Italy. Are these studies coming out of Europe? Are they coming out of the States?
So there's some more like informal kind of case reports and studies out of the States with smaller groups that are, 5 to 15 people. That would be, the clinic that is just working with the herniated discs and doing that. There is an American Academy of Ozone Therapy, and in order to become a part of that, you have to be able to produce some case studies. So there is some out of the United States. The vast majority would be coming out of Italy. That's kind of the hub of the scientific resource for ozone therapy, and they're really trying to dig their nails into it. And there's actually some universities there that are endorsing it, that are researching it, that are working with it. So there's been a lot of fantastic doctors from Italy who are studying ozone.
Awesome. And is there anything you could give our listeners? This is not more of a, like, I don't want you to give them a challenge per se, but because we'll have your links and website and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of videos you can find, but there's 2 things I want to ask you. Is one, someone who's interested in ozone, like what's the advice you can give them? Because this is your world, and there's a lot of people out there who are really confused about what to do when they have back pain, neck pain, arm pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, and they're not sure. There's so many things out there, and there's a lot of stuff coming at us from the internet, and Dr. Google gives us one information, the orthopedic gives us another, physical therapist, chiropractor give you more. So can you give our audience some tips on like directions to go if they're having some of these joint problems or health conditions?
So I think the first thing to do is, just get a second opinion, obviously, and preferably if you're going to a natural practitioner, or if you're going to a standard practitioner, get one from a natural practitioner, get a second opinion on things and see what they have to say. In regards to ozone, it's one of those fundamental things. So it's addressing it's not addressing the root problem per se, but it's assisting the body to heal itself and to bring itself into self-regulation. So with ozone therapy, it's one of those things that you probably would want to consider because it's only going to be a few $100. It's relatively easy as long as you don't mind a couple of needles, which are practically painless going into the body.
Of course.
They're really not that big of a deal, especially going into something like a knee. It's just, there's a huge joint space there, so it's not a problem. But if you have some sort of issue going on in a joint, whether it's arthritis or a herniated disc, or I have actually grade 2 spondylolisthesis, and I've done
I got you glitched a little bit.
Barely pain.
Yep. Sorry, we glitched for a second. We had a Zoom glitch, but that's okay. So you said you had a spondylolisthesis. You've injected it or had ozone injected into your back. That's helped?
And that's kind of a unrepairable issue, so to speak.
Yeah, of course.
But with some of the arthritis, osteoarthritis I also have, it's really, kept me up and operating fairly normally, is just being able to do these injections. So for me, I have to do them maybe on a yearly basis for a few $100, but I I mean, for the fact that I get to walk around and do what I want, that's really
Yeah, that's awesome. And
yeah.
you're aging well, obviously. So,
Uh,
what I got stumped for a second with the glitch threw me off, but so when, you know what, I'll spin it this way. I'm a rookie interviewer, obviously.
No, you're good.
And I've been asking all of my participants on the Immunity Community 2020 channel, so to speak, what have you done to adapt during this time period? And have you had to make any pivots in your career or pivots in the way that you're operating, or your operations all online? So, or even, I think you're a dad. And so am I correct in that one? You're a father?
Yeah, so I'm a father.
Yeah, okay. So how have you adapted to what's going on in our country right now, or in our world?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a crazy world. I do want to answer real quick too. I didn't quite get to for further resources on understanding ozone therapy, go to drsozone.com, drsozone.com.
Okay.
There's some resources there. A lot of it's going to be geared towards the medical, cancer, autoimmune, and infectious diseases, but there's some on injections, and there's a lot of success stories. But yeah, with COVID-19, I mean, who saw that coming? That's pretty crazy.
Crazy.
I mean, it's been pretty wild. You know, I'm not fearful of it personally. You know, I think there's, and I'm not saying that it's not a big deal at all. It is a big deal, and it's a very big reality for a lot of people. For us as a business, you know, or an organization here, I'm coming on as Doctors Ozone, the educational organization right now. It's just working remotely, so we're sheltering in place. We're enjoying life, I guess, with the family, spending more time with each other. But it's been pretty crazy busy, actually, to be honest. So I haven't had much time to think about the virus. So I've been responding to hundreds of emails and phone calls every day.
Have you found like an increase in purchasing products, or people using ozone to help boost their immune system during this time period?
So there's definitely been an increase in the interest of ozone, and a lot of people are going to it. So that's why I've been so busy, is just answering a lot of questions, helping people, you know, find the resources that they're looking for, find the information they're looking for, helping doctors get set up with the equipment that they need. So it's been pretty wild. So ozone is pretty well known. Again, we're talking, I know you guys have the pain clinic and the injection clinic, and that is, you know, one of the knock out of the parks for ozone.
Yeah.
But its medical purposes extend really far. I mean, it's able to modulate the immune system. So what that means is, and this is really well studied. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of patients who have been treated and studied under some of these things, especially in Cuba. There's been a lot done there too.
Awesome.
Cuba was one of the epicenters of ozone for a long time because they don't have much money there. Doctors are getting paid $30 a month. I mean, what do you do when you kind of have that type of regime? Well, you need something that's really effective, but really cheap and easy to do. So ozone, they picked it up from Italy, like, hey, there's some good research here. Let's start doing it. They ended up building an entire hospital around ozone and using it and studying it quite.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it's interesting because it's not, you know, you're not producing a pharmaceutical. You're taking oxygen from the air, putting it through, or putting a charge through it, and turning it into a gas that is used for, that it's clinically used, that can be injected in the blood, can be injected in the joint. We even use it for trigger point injections instead of lidocaine. We've seen phenomenal results in all of those things. One thing I just want to put out there, that it's, you know, and I'm not saying it's a cure for anything. And I would look at it more as curative, that it's, and again, it's going to help boost your immune system. If there's one more piece I have for, like, just a question, we've created a model here within our office called Feel Better, Get Well. And most of the models that have been out there have been based on get well to feel better, right? You know, from a physical therapy standpoint, you look at tight hamstrings, look at all the things that are wrong first, and then just start jumping right into those. And instead, we've worked to help people feel better so they can get well long term. And part of the Feel Better routine has been using ozone for people to actually feel better very quickly, and then work on those other elements like a degenerated disc or tears and ligaments or weak muscles and things like that. Is there any explanation, or do you have any ideas as to, like, how it quickly helps people feel better? Because I've seen amazing results with it very fast.
Yeah, because it's really quickly addressing the pain pathways. So if you have pain in an area and it's able to help remediate that, cut down some of the inflammation, you're going to pretty much immediately feel better, especially if you're mixing it into the Prolozone mix, which you have procaine and B12 and folic acid and some of these other things that are going into the joint. Those are very regenerative. So you're going to notice a quick relief because it addresses the pain pathways, reduces some of the inflammation, and helps stimulate the healing process. So that's one of the things about ozone that really excites me is not, like you said, it's not a cure. So, in some cases like herniated discs, it's great. In peripheral vascular disease, it's really good. It's kind of a knockout of the park. But for a lot of things, let's say like cancer or arthritis, there's an underlying mechanism and a whole gambit of things that are happening. So with ozone, it's addressing the mechanisms of the disease to help start us on that journey of getting better. So people might notice an increase in energy or a decrease of pain. And that's pretty exciting. Once you get a couple things under your belt, you're like, yes, I kind of want to keep on going at this.
Of course.
I want to keep doing this. And as a practitioner, that's super important because you're going to get better patient results because they're going to be more trusting of you. And as a patient, that's awesome too, because I can walk away from the office without having taken a drug and start to feel better. So it's one of those things that, man, I really would love to. One of the goals of my career is I want to see this come to FDA approval.
Yes,
so that's kind of the end goal for me. And one of the things I'm would like to see. And I'm not sure what circle that's going to be in yet, but it's really kind of disappointing that more people are not aware of this, that they're
especially right now.
Yeah, I know. And, it's a good opportunity. Dr. Rowan is doing some good work to bring attention to ozone. So there's been some good case reports with COVID-19 and ozone. Nothing definitive, but some preliminary stuff where they have people with positive COVID results and are able to see a quick remission of the symptoms when they're doing ozone therapy. So Dr. Rowan, Dr. Brownstein, you can look them up on Facebook. They're actually publishing a lot of this stuff, which a lot of people just don't know about, but yeah, there's a lot of great things with it.
That's awesome, man. So Micah, first of all, thank you so much for going outside the box and really having a passion that's much bigger than you as a person. So it's a testament to just who you are, even though we just met like 15 minutes ago. But it's a serious testament. And I appreciate you doing that because you make it possible for me to help myself, help my family, help our patients get results, feel better, get well. And you're doing a bold thing, man. So keep going. And I'd love to help you. Whatever I can do to help you push this stuff through the FDA, and we're going to talk more with our audience about how to access this stuff locally with our office, but certainly check out Micah's website, simply o3.com, or Doctors Ozone, DRS, Ozone, OZONE.com, and we'll put all those links there. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, knowledge is power. So in this case, knowledge is always the preliminary to regulatory change. So understanding ozone is what is going to make it change. And the more people that know about it, the better.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, man.